And so, you've got that set of facts or accusation. I know they've admitted to some of these things, right? There's not a lot of dispute over whether a number of these transactions happened, right? I don't believe there's been much disputing that these payments were made. There's what you have so far as the NRA's defense goes, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this and how viable it is. But their argument is there were some bad actors, or some of the leadership made mistakes, such as Wayne LaPierre, but they've reformed internally. They've put in new controls. Wayne LaPierre, for instance, paid about $1 million back in for I guess private flights that his niece had been booked on without him. They're still defending a number of these things. Like I think he's accused of using something like $11 million worth of private flights. But he says many of those were necessitated by security. But the bottom line argument is that some bad things did happen. However, we've reformed internally ourselves, and there's been restitution made. No further action is needed. That appears to be their argument. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a rather hollow argument because all throughout this, they have been fighting the Attorney General, and many of the directors who were really upset about what went on have been kicked off the board, including some who were close allies of LaPierre. I mean, he was basically acting like Stalin or some other dictator. Anybody who opposed him was just kicked out, off the board. And in terms of the corrections, there were some. He hasn't paid back. He paid some federal penalties under Section 4958 of the Internal Revenue Code, several $1,000s. In terms of state repayments to the NRA, it's nowhere near what he took. So it really, they haven't reformed themselves, and that's one of the reasons why this case is still going on. And LaPierre has since resigned.
Right.
It's
right, and as part of that, the sort of the next level of defense that I've seen from at least the NRA's lawyers, in particular, the Brewer firm representing the NRA, they've argued that insofar as the Attorney General has shown harm, that the harm was actually done to the NRA because these individual defendants, including LaPierre, were taking money from the NRA. They weren't enriching the NRA by doing this stuff as an organization. And most of them are not involved with the NRA anymore, including now Wayne LaPierre having resigned, really in the middle of the trial, because he announced it on the eve of it, but it didn't go into effect until the end of January, which was right in the middle of the trial.
Yeah.
Is that a stronger case?
I think not at all, because one of the things that is going on with the NRA is that they have lost several million members. It's a membership in terms of its finances. It's driven by membership dues, and it has lost 40% of its financing. So it's no longer in fear of going bankrupt, literally going bankrupt, but the services it provides are greatly reduced. And that has really harmed the organization. And that's why it's uncertain if it's going to be able to recover. I mean, I can give you some figures I found from an article about this by an accountant. Their spending for educational policy was $7.7 million in 2016, was reduced to $3.2 million in 2022, the last fiscal year that they have records. Law enforcement support from $7.2 million to $5.1 million. Field services, $11.9 million to $1.3 million. Spending on programming from $176 million in 2017 to $73 million in 2022. Also, their legal expenses have averaged $40 million a year for the last 3 years, totaling over $100 million. So the situation of the NRA has been really going down the tubes. And that's been going on since the time that the suit was brought. And in terms of the full payback, that's just not so.
Okay. So, and you think that is further evidence of how the NRA was harmed in this scheme? Is that the argument?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, not to speak of its reputation. When you lose 2 million members, 2 million people are disgusted with the way this organization has been run. And as I said, it almost had to declare bankruptcy. Apparently it doesn't now, but it really has very little free assets, in other words, to, like extra funds.
Sure. Yeah, no, their finances have certainly dwindled over the course of this. I'm just wondering if that has, obviously that has that's sort of a real world practical impact, but is that going to play a role in this court case as far as what the jury considers or the judge considers when it comes to whether or not the NRA has reformed itself?
I think it certainly will.
Okay.
Because so many of the things he did was without the permission of the board. I mean, he did it on his own. And the amount of money that he's paid back, he says, I paid back $3 million or not
paid back $1 million.
300,000.
I think they've lost somewhere around 1 million members, maybe more than that at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, whatever it is, that's a definite harm, which they're probably not going to recover a lot of them. So I think that's all part of the problem.
But if he's not there anymore, right? If he's gone, it seems like his people who were allies of his inside the organization are still in charge, but he's gone. Maybe you don't think that'll have a practical effect on the outcome of this case?
Yeah, what I would guess is going to happen is that the Attorney General is going to ask for a monitor of the organization. And the Attorney General doesn't want to destroy the NRA. She wants to reform it. And what will happen?
Well, we'll get into that in a minute.
Is the monitor will look at the controls, look at the board, bring new people on the board, then give a kosher or halal seal of approval to the organization. The Attorney General will release the monitor. The NRA will leave New York and go to Texas. And and the organization will be in good shape. What usually happens when the Attorney General brings an action against a nonprofit, the nonprofit will run to the courthouse to say that we will reform ourselves. What do you want us to do? LaPierre didn't do that. He wanted to fight, and he's going to lose the fight. And the fact that he resigned, it's sort of like somebody robs a bank and then says, well, you caught me? I'll give the money back. I'm free. I didn't do anything. So anyway, that's the way I think it's going to turn out, is that James is going to make sure that the organization is on the up and up. And if the NRA wants to go to Texas, they will be able to dissolve the New York branch or the headquarters in New York and reincorporate in Texas.